it's DK and Shade from TacoYaki Anime.
Yo!
And we are back. We are back for our final thoughts on the fall anime for 2020.
Indeed.
Yes, today we have 4 shows. Not 44 shows to talk about today.
Thank God. I don't think we've had so many that we've had to kind of gloss. Like, we had like 3 breaks that time for that one. Jeez.
Yeah. So the reason why that happened is because I was so excited to get a break from what I've been doing the last 3 weeks. And I was like, oh my God, anime, how I've missed you. And then
You went overboard.
Yeah, I went. That's probably the biggest. I think the biggest one before that was 23 or something like that.
Well, I think we blew that one out of the water. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
say.
Oh,
geez.
And then it was time for me to finish watching shows, and I was just too tired. So I just mustered through 2. And maybe next season.
At least they were a good 2.
Yeah. So maybe next season I'll finish more, but with my track record,
I won't hold my breath, but we shall see.
Yeah. So first show we got today is not the title screen. It is 100 Man blah blah blah, or Standing on 100 Lives, 1,000,000 Lives.
So this show, it's not groundbreaking in regards to anime and the fantasy genre, especially when this one is kind of a isekai. The only thing I could say that it kind of does different than your average isekai anime is that instead of most isekais, when the main characters are transported to another world, they're there until they either complete something, and like that's the whole series, or they find their way back. That's the whole point of it, kind of thing. This one, they bounce back and forth.
They take the Inuyasha route.
Kind of, yeah. Because every time they go back into the world, and they don't have a choice in the matter, they just are taken into the world. They're given a task, a quest, and basically they're saying that you can go back home once you finish the quest. The interesting part, I guess, in that regards is that the quest is oftentimes very ambiguous and kind of left up to the characters to decide how to complete. Other than that, it's not anything like stupendous. Like, there is some tension, I guess, in the fact that, like, if all of them die, then they all die and they'll never respawn.
So it's kind of like, instead of a single player first person shooter, it's like a squad shooter.
Kinda. Except in a fantasy realm.
Yeah.
The only, I guess, the biggest, and I'm sure you're not probably going to watch this one, so I have no spoilers. Anyone who potentially wants to watch this one, you can go ahead and turn around, because this is the big reveal of this season, and I know there's going to be another season, and I'm debating whether or not I want to watch it when it does come out. But the big reveal of this is that, so after they complete a quest, before they get taken home, they get to ask the game master one question, and he will answer to completion one question. Most of the questions have been pretty ambiguous, vague. They're just kind of general questions, nothing kind of why are we here? What's going on? Kind of things, or such and such. The last one to make a question and have it answered asked about the world itself, because at one point, when in order to solve an issue, there was this one group that was basically going to um, kill these religious people because they didn't believe in their religion, didn't want their religion spreading into their country, or yada yada yada. So they were taking them to a specific town in order to execute them on orders of their king. The heroes had a person with them who was from a different city, a different town, and the worry was is that if they were to help them, it would essentially mean declaring war, essentially. And they wanted to try to avoid that, but they still wanted to help. So the main guy character in this whole thing decided that he would kind of stage a performance in which he would make it look like he himself killed the religious people and then took off with the transportation of the people who were trying to do that, and just basically mess up their lives just because they had kind of pissed him off by the fact that they had tried to kill him. So, in order to make it look real and convincing, because what they did was is they made fake decoys of the religious people. They had a straw body kind of looking things tied up and a bag put over their head or whatever in order to make it look like they were people. Typical decoy kind of things. But in order to make it look real, they had, because there was three of the people who were trying to kill the religious people. Two of them went off with one of the heroes, and then the other one stayed in order to guard the religious people. And the hero, freed the religious people, tied up the guard, and threw them in with the piles of the straw dummies. So at least there was a body that was moving, essentially, to make it look that, to give it that much more. Because if you tried to just say that it was just them and no one was moving, it would kind of make it look like it was staged or faked.
Yeah.
So in order to make it not that way, he tied them up. He tied him up too, and then he burned them all. In his mind, this entire time, because of the fact that they have respawns, because they can teleport their weapons to them or whatever, and various things, in his mind, this is just a game. Like, it's a virtual world. None of it's real. The last question that was posed to him or to the game master, basically asked what this world was. And the answer to this was, it's not a virtual world, it's a parallel world. Running on the same thought process of, if at some point someone makes a decision, then two different worlds are formed because you have the one decision that's made and you have the other decision that's made. Both are viable, both are real, but because a decision as was made, two worlds now exist. And it keeps branching and branching and branching and branching for every decision being made. Well, so that means all of those people are actually real. And the fact that he then realized that he actually killed somebody kind of was a blow to him a little bit. The idea that you actually killed a person, even though, I mean, they kind of tried to kill you, and, you could have looked at it as more kind of a self-defense thing almost. It wasn't really, because he was tied up at that point and defenseless, but... So, And then at the very end, he ends up getting told by the game master, who, and I guess this goes into the idea that it's not a virtual thing because it used to be that the game master could only contact them in their world via like phones or something like that. Well, this time the game master took on a form in their world and even brought one of the items, that magical items that the main character had been using in this, to his world. And because at one point there was a confrontation, and he holds up the item, going, "Do you want to use it?" Again, I see. I think that's kind of the main thing of this whole thing. It's the options, it's the decisions, it's decisions that we make, decisions that they make, affecting the world and how it transpires. Which, I mean, again, it's kind of an interesting plot device, I guess. Um, and each of these characters that have been introduced in the storyline so far all have quirks to them, I guess. They're like, they all have their own backstory, they all have their own baggage that comes along with it, and it's kind of them all growing and progressing as a character. So almost the storyline itself is not as important, I suppose, as it is the fact of just the characters and them and their own. Um, so I mean, I don't know. Like I said, it's not bad. I don't want anyone to think that it's not bad. It's just not stupendous. Animation is okay. It's nothing grandiose. Nothing, They have fight sequences. It just kind of seems a lot of times they end up cutting away. Don't always show it, and well, because a lot of times it's just that he dies. So it's just like you'll see a charge and an attack, a collision about to happen, and the next thing you know, there he is on the ground bleeding, and his ghost form standing above him, going, "God damn it!" You know. So it's not anything grandiose, but it's not bad per se. Um, so the animation is okay. Storyline is interesting, but I think needs more to it. I want to say, like, if that's the big reveal, and if that's like the big um, hook to this whole storyline, I don't necessarily feel like that's enough. Like, I feel like there should be more into this.
It's more of like an explanation of the setting instead of like the actual conflict.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like we're explaining the setting, but we still have no clue why they're there. We still have no clue what it is that they're doing, other than completing these quests for some odd strange reason. The only thing that they've hinted at is that at some point, there's going to be an invasion of mythical creatures, like a dragon that's going to appear in Tokyo, and him and some others who are not necessarily explained are going to be there. So it's like, okay, so far, looking at the way that they are, I can't necessarily see that there's like, if that were to happen like the very next day, like everyone would be screwed. Like, they're nowhere near ready to face a dragon unless all of a sudden one of them faces, and all of a sudden one of them pulls some mysterious something something out of somewhere, and all of a sudden just gains some hidden ability, or the game master just cheats for them or something. I don't know. But either way, I'm just like, if this is the destination that we're going in, like, if there's a reason why the dragon's being sent to our world and such, like, I'd be more interested in that. Like, if there was some other plot, some other like hidden force that was trying to come at us or something like that, I'd be more interested in that. But as it is, it's just like, oh, a dragon appears and you got to kill it, and it's like, all right, we have guns and such, right? Are you telling me, like, I mean, we've already seen, what is it? What is that one anime? Where they went into a fantasy world and faced a dragon, but it was like a military force.
Oh,
You know what I'm talking about?
I feel like it was one word. Um,
Gate.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like we already seen an anime, and don't get me wrong, they didn't like. It took a bit for them to kill it. I get
Oh
that.
yeah, they didn't just mow stuff
They
down.
didn't just mow stuff down, but it was still wasn't like the world's gonna come to an end simply because a dragon appears. You know, it's like eventually they figured out a way to kill it. So it's like, why is it so important for these quote unquote heroes to face this dragon? What is the point behind? Like, there's got to be something else. There's got to be something. I feel like we spent a whole 12 episodes and we've barely gotten anything from it, which is the reason why I'm having this issue of like they've already said there's a second season coming, and I'm like, cool. Are we gonna start getting answers? Because we spent 12 episodes essentially just laying the groundwork, which I think is a little extensive. So I guess maybe the pacing itself just is a little off on that. But it's like we spent 12 episodes laying the groundwork, had a big reveal, and then we're like, next season. And I'm like, wait, what? What? Why? What did we do? You know, so I don't know. It's okay. It's not the worst. I've definitely seen way worse animes out there. Um, the fact that I stuck with it for the 12 episodes, even though I'm complaining about it, should say something in that regards. But I am sorely debating on whether or not, when that second season comes out, if I really want to go for it. If there's not a whole lot of series going on, I may jump into it and see.
Okay.
But if this is going to be one of those where like there's a whole bunch of bigger name titles that I'm going to be more interested in, I may pass on this. I don't know.
Okay. So as far as a recommendation, is kind of on the fence for it, or
I'm a little on the fence for it. I'm a little on the fence for it. I'm not gonna lie. I don't like I said. If you're my only recommendation for this would have to be somebody who really enjoys fantasy,
okay.
because the fantasy elements are there. You know, you have creatures, you have battles, you have sword fights, you have magic. Even though all of it's pretty much a kind of a letdown, you know, because the main character, even though he tries to use bladed weapons, sucks at it for the longest time. Even though the other characters, one of them's a warrior, she sucks at it. She tries eventually, but it still is one of those grueling things where you're like, oh my god, can you please do something? Think about it for a second.
And it's like a more of a disappointing sucking at it instead of like a comical sucking at it, like Konosuba.
Kinda. Yeah. I would say it's kind of a disappointed more than a comic. The wizard, the magic from the wizard is kind of a comic because since she's so low level, all of her spells do like is the difference between you remember the wise man's grandson, right?
Mm-hmm.
You remember when he went to go try for the school or whatever?
I remember we went over it on the show. I don't remember how far I went into it.
Okay, because there's a one point where he's trying out for going into the academy,
Mm-hmm.
and this is the first time he's seen magic from his people from his age do
Mm-hmm.
magic. And mind you, he has scientific mind because he has mind from our world, so he knows how to combine elements and make some you know grandiose spells or whatever without having to do anything. These people that he ends up seeing have to do these chants and then end up like I don't know, some girl does a rock spell and ends up being like pebbles hitting the target or something like that. That's kind of the same magic that we're dealing with in this one, where like the wizard's like she does a wind spell and it's like a breeze instead of like anything. And you're like, come on. Yeah, you could have walked up to the creature and blown like breathed on it and it had the same effect. I mean, come on. It's like I get low level, but even low level in RPGs aren't that bad come on, so
Okay.
yeah.
Cool. So, uh, who would the show be for? Like you said, it'd probably be for fantasy anime fans. As far as your expectations, did you have expectations for the show, or?
I mean, I guess when I go into any sort of isekai, I do have at least some expectations for it. Um, Usually, I find that in like the first, I don't know, 3 or 4. First 3 or 4 episodes that I come across, I'll at least find like, hey, this is the a plot driven sort of anime, or this is a character driven sort of anime. You know, this one, it kind of like it was going in too many different directions. Like
Okay.
there is a plot, and I see that it's trying to go there, but I also see that it has character development that it's trying to put a focus on as well. And I think that's probably where this whole thing kind of diverges from, is because it tries to branch out in too many different directions. It's like, have a focus.
Okay.
Focus on one thing. If you're wanting to have this big plot reveal with this dragon attacking, let's focus on that. If you're wanting to have characters with bad backstories or whatever trying to do things, let's focus on that. And let's see how they grow and and become better people for their experiences that they're having in this town, in this world. But it went too many different directions. So I would love to say that I did have expectations for it, but after I saw that it was doing that, I'm like, I have no idea what you're doing.
Okay.
It's kind of one of those situations where it's like when the anime doesn't know what it's doing, it's hard. It's hard for the watcher to know what the hell it's doing.
Okay.
So,
Do you have a favorite character?
um, I guess I'd have to say the main boy character. I can't remember his name, but he is a loner type, and you think, oh, he's just a rebel or whatever. But it was kind of just because throughout his entire life, he has been separated and apart from people. So he's kind of grown this stigma about him where he expects that. And I guess that's his main character development, is that he is supposed to be a leader. So it's him being put in this role and having to deal with this sort of thing. But he doesn't necessarily deal with it well because he's always been put into this loner situation.
Okay.
Um, and seeing the way he acts in this environment before he realized that the actual world itself was a real world and not just like some sort of video game world itself, then that's kind of where he decided that he was like, okay, you know, the way he acts, I'm like, I would totally be the same way. Like he's like, all right, you guys stay over here, be safe. So if I die, I can still respawn, and I'm gonna go level myself up a bunch. Like I'm like, you know what? I probably would do the same thing. Because it's like you got to have those levels, you got to have those experience in front of you, so that way you're more better equipped to handle certain things that come across
Mhm.
when you're going into this world. So it's like I totally see that, and it's like I can kind of agree with that. So I guess that's, to me, that was probably my favorite character in that regards.
Okay. uh, what was your favorite part?
Um, I would say my favorite part in this. They do I don't know, it kind of reaches sometimes because they try to do some comedic stuff in this as well.
Mhm.
Like they kind of, the tone of the anime shifts, and not always like it doesn't flow nicely for that. Like they're like trying to be serious, and then they go to comedic
Mhm.
out of nowhere, and you're like, where did this comedy come from?
Mhm.
But I guess in one situation where it kind of felt like it was, I guess, warranted in a sense, was he goes off on his own in order to. So their whole mission was to get to a certain town. They needed to get to a town, but they didn't have any transportation. So he's like, "Hey, I can see about going and doing this competition and trying to win this competition because I'm stronger than everybody, and you guys keep moving. So if I fail, you guys at least have moved forward. If you fail, I maybe can actually get us some transportation and keep us going." Well, he kind of fails, but he ends up getting the better of it. The only thing he didn't figure out was they kind of failed too. So both situations failed. The girls ended up getting captured by some robbers, and yeah, they got kind of pissed off by the fact that they're like thinking he's kind of going away without them, but he ends up circling back to him, and it was a then the tone changed once again because now we're more serious because the he realized he was with a party of he realized they got captured, so he brought knights in order to take out the bandits. So all of a sudden we went from this comedic because they're captured, but the thieves couldn't do anything to them even though they were women, and they were alluding to something like that because they're still heroes, powerful, and they still can actually bring out weapons and try to kill them and whatever. So, but then all of a sudden the knights showed up and just wiped the floor with all of them. So it was kind of like it's kind of interesting, but I don't know. Like I said, nothing outstanding. Nothing like, oh my god, this is so funny, this was so amazing. God, his power was so awesome. It was more just like, yeah, it's kind of cool, you know. So
Yeah, I've still at episode 1 on this show, so I feel like I may have, for some reason this season, I feel like I've watched like some of the shows,
mm-hmm.
and then I don't know, it's weird, but
Yeah.
like I feel like I've maybe have seen 2 episodes of this, but it may have been just the first. I'm not sure. Um, this whole season has been weird, but
I agree. I agree with that one. I agree.
yeah. That is that show. The next show we're going to be talking about is the best show of the season that we've watched. Dungeon, season 3.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. This was like we okay, I get they wanted to add in the other character. I get that. The Fox Lady character. But as I think we said before, that could have been a like
Oh, yeah.
OVA or
Like a
whatever.
little 3-episode adventure.
Yeah, and I'd have been perfectly fine with that. Perfectly fine with that. This should have been the anime, or this should have been the season that came after the first, because this season was awesome in so many ways. Um, I feel like we're getting deeper into the story now.
Oh, yeah.
Like this is now like some things are starting to be revealed, and I'm like, oh,
I still
okay.
feel like that lady's disconnected a little bit.
Which one?
The one that's like sitting and watching everything from afar.
Oh, Freya, the goddess.
I think so. Apparently, I'm never going to learn her name, so probably.
Um, it's interesting to me. It's interesting to me because I watched some reactions of this one from various people just to get some perspective on what other people are thinking about it as well. And it's interesting because they pointed out that towards the end, the plan. So Hermes, if you go back from him on the first season, like he saw Belle kill that floor boss and everything, right? He saw Belle take out the floor boss. To him, killing the monster, being the savior, that's what being a hero is. And that's what he wants him to work towards. Now, this whole situation with monsters that actually have personalities, that actually have feelings, that actually have emotions and can talk.
Intelligence.
This is a whole new thing, but in his mind, much like the same of all the other adventurers' mind, they're still monsters and they still need to be defeated. And his whole goal is getting Bell to be that hero that he believes he needs to be. But so that was like his whole game plan at the very end. That was what he was trying to do. He was trying to get Bell back on track in his mind of what he needed to do to be a hero. But I don't think that's what the intention is. I don't think that's what Bell is meant to be. He's not meant to be the hero of the people on the surface. He's meant to be the hero of all. You know, he is going to be the key to bringing about peace, I think, where there's no longer a need for a dungeon, where there's no longer a need for this whole, you know, adventurers killing monsters and monsters killing adventurers. He's going to bridge that gap. Is what I
Yeah.
feel like is what they're I feel like it's what they're gearing up towards.
There's one thing that when that bloodline was starting to be talked about and like the labyrinth and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
The creator or the one who made the blueprints for the labyrinth that was being built, he was not the person that created the dungeon, right?
No. He created his own. The gods created the dungeon, is what I gather from this.
Yeah,
The gods themselves created the dungeon.
and because of his feelings towards the dungeon, he wanted to create something for himself, or to pay
Like
respect to the dungeon or something.
I want to say, okay, so the gods themselves, he helped in its creation of the dungeon.
Okay.
The gods themselves were the main mechanicians behind the dungeon, but he was the one on the surface, I think, before the gods fully arrived to the world, being the labor behind getting all of this moving and running. And I think over time, it's just kind of grown further on its own.
Okay.
Is what I feel like.
So it basically
I
evolved.
that, but yeah, I feel like it's evolved further than what, because I mean, it's not like, so his, well, and it kind of, you found out it was not his book specifically, but his notes and what he was doing, I feel like he had he had a small portion of what he knew the dungeon to be, and so he was able to manipulate his small portion of what he knew, because it's not like he could go any floor or anywhere. He only could go to certain floors and do certain things. And, you know, his reach was, he had a reach, but it was very limited in what he could do. And I know his machinations and what he was trying to do was to expand upon that and go further than what he had been able to do previously. But it still wasn't the the full all of it. So, um my whole thing is that, you know, discussing characters and everything, this is absolutely amazing, and the characters that they create and the development and trying to see what side everyone is on.
Yeah, because some people like they mention something and you're like, oh my god, are they gonna flip?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so like, okay, all of Bell's Familia, they're 100% behind him. There might have been some question early on,
Oh
but
yeah.
I think towards the end, they're 100% behind him. Like, they believe in what he believes.
Yeah.
They want to help and doing what it is that he is trying to do, because I feel like they feel the same way in a lot of ways. Like, this is the same thing that they believe. So, 100% that. Like, that is just 100% as far as my concern goes. But then you have the Loki family, who is very traditional in their whole thought process,
I need a
and
chart to be like, these people are part of this familia, and these people are part of this familia, because they're throwing out the gods' names, and I'm like, oh, you're
yeah,
not the same. Y'all aren't in the same group. Okay.
no. So then you have the Loki family, who is very traditional in their thought process and wanting to take monsters out regardless. Um, and God, just speaking about that for a second, that whole scene with Belle and Ween at the towards the end, when Ice Wallenstein was there.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, that
She
was
was like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. And then yeah,
the
it's
fact that she did what she did, and basically, when I said that, your claws hurt people, your wings terrify people, your stone can, cause you to go berserk and da 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 da, and then she starts tearing them off. I was like, oh my God, no, no. Like, I get it, but no,
yeah, and
don't.
the it's like the way that Lena has grown throughout the series is to be like she's hurt people by accident with her claws.
Yeah.
So right after that, they've been shaved down to be safe, and then her claws are back to normal, and someone else brings it out, and she's like, "I understand that." Takes those off. The wings, when she saved that other girl, the wings scared everybody in that little town center at the time, and she had to run away. And then Ice brings that up again, and she's like, "I understand. Let me get rid of that too." And it's like, yeah, like
I mean, you want to talk about hard decisions to make, like hard decisions to make. That right there that was over the top for me. I was just like, oh my God, and that really drove it home for Eyes, seeing that. And I think, and the whole thing that they had at the end were between Belle and Eyes, when they were talking with each other, and he's like, I want you to train me, and she's like, are you sure? Because I think she really, at that time, she understood, and she felt guilty for what she had done and what she had caused, and she thought herself as more of a bad person because of that, and that maybe Belle wouldn't want anything to do with her. I think is what that was from,
okay.
and that's
I
that's pretty rough
For
as
me,
far as.
I felt a little bit of, after all that you've done, you're still gonna ask me for favors, kind of like because she was like, Belle, you're being unfair, kind of thing.
Well, see, I thought it was being unfair in regards to him being so nice.
Okay.
That's where I thought that came from. The fact that
Okay,
the
okay, I
fact
see, I
that
see
he wasn't mad at her, and still wanted to train with her, be with her, and yet she felt that she had made a mistake. It's that she felt she had made a mistake. To me, that was like, yeah,
that.
that was where she was coming from.
Okay, I see that.
One sec. Can we go one sec?
Okay.
Okay. Um, so yeah, no, I thought that there was a great deal of character development in regards to you know, Ainz and their relationship together, and
Oh
I
yeah.
can see where it's going to blossom even further from what I can see is what I consider that. The gods themselves, though, like I love seeing the turmoil between the other gods, the ones that had already given some of their followers over to Hestia,
Oh,
that
okay, yeah,
they're friends with them and everything, and because there was the the goddess of the forge, and then the other Japanese god that had given one of his followers over to her as well, and the fact that when all this was coming up and Hestia's family was put into like scrutiny because of the fact that they were helping or were seen essentially helping the monsters, and then he and all of them were like, I want to help but I'm conflicted.
Mhm.
Like that's a natural reaction. I could see that. But
Yeah,
the fact that they still in the end chose to help, to me, showed great trust and pretty much that they're really trying to broaden their horizons and their thought process on this, and opposed to like Loki's family, who was very much straight into just like, no, these are monsters, we have to kill them.
yeah, doing what you feel is right compared to doing, I guess, like falling in line with the people who are supposedly right.
Mm-hmm.
Because
It's like this is, if you want to talk about conflict, this is like a pretty spectacular conflict, is the way I look at it.
yeah,
Like, wow, this puts like there are times that even I was looking at a lot of this. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, as far as the decisions made in the show and everything from by Belle and Hesty and everything, I'm totally on board with. But there were even times that I was looking at it going, man, that's a hard sell. That's a hard sell to try to convince other people of this that you're in the right. You know what I mean?
yeah. I do like the way that the three kind of like the three factions are kind of split up, where
Mm-hmm.
it's humans, monsters, and then like intelligent monsters, because the intelligent monsters get attacked by regular monsters, just
Yeah.
like how different species attack each other. It's just the survival of the fittest. And then the intelligent monsters cannot in any way talk to most humans, almost all humans, because as soon as they show up, it's like, monster, kill him.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's one, keeping yourself safe by avoiding humans, but then two, whenever you're trapped in a certain situation, you like, even if you're with humans that are, you know that there are humans that are out there trying to protect you, you there's still this overwhelming force that's against you, to where you'll have to turn your back on the human allies that you do have, because where they're all gonna come after us anyway. And
Mm-hmm.
if I don't have the power to protect myself, so I'm just gonna have to kill more humans to get somewhere safe.
Yeah.
And I like how there's this huge turmoil in that situation, because in any other like less leveled anime, it would be humans like normal, and then only intelligent monsters. And there's been this misunderstanding this whole time,
Mm-hmm.
and one member from each side will bridge the two races, and everything will be happily ever after.
Mm-hmm.
Like this conflict is so much more leveled and like
Oh yeah.
very well executed that I'm like just very impressed.
Well, and then even if you have intelligent monsters, like their nature to a certain extent still comes through.
Yeah.
Because that last battle with the Minotaur, like it took me as I'm like to me when the Minotaur showed up, I'm like, okay, really? We're going with another Minotaur? Why is this an ongoing theme essentially in this whole thing where Minotaur has to be one of his main bad guys? But then they explain that this is the reincarnation of the Minotaur he had fought before.
That's what I was wondering. I thought the other one died. Yeah.
He
Okay.
did,
Yeah.
but this
Okay.
is him now reincarnated, which is why he said when he beat him, now we're tied.
Yeah.
You've won one, I've won one, so the next one's going to be the decision maker.
Part of me is kind of like, Bell could have stood up. Like, come on, Bell.
That was pretty intense.
Yeah.
Like him going through as many buildings as he
Yeah.
did. I'm like, oh Bell. And then I was reading somewhere in one of the comment sections from someone I guess who had read the manga about it previously, is that Minotaur at this point in time is actually level 7. The only reason Bell didn't get immediately stomped out is because he is missing an arm and had been bleeding profusely.
That's
So
right.
you can figure his power went from being at a level 7 to about maybe 10% of what his 10 to 20% of his original power. So what you saw based upon that was only a fraction of what he had originally been capable of. Which is why in the very beginning when he showed up with all those adventures, he wiped the floor with them.
Oh, yeah.
He wiped the floor with them.
What level is Eyes?
I think Eyes is level 5,
Okay.
I want to say. And
She
Belle, I
was the
think
one that
at
took
the
his
end of the
arm
show
off, right?
was yeah, she was the one who took his arm
Okay.
off. But I think it was like I don't think the reason why that happened was because it was a like she got a surprise attack off on him.
Yeah.
I think is what happened. I'm trying to remember that exactly. I could be wrong, but um, yeah, that was. So my whole thing is at the end of that though is that he says the lizard guy says at the end he's like, oh, he went to go train more because he wants to get more powerful. I'm like, well, shit, how much more powerful is he gonna get? Damn, because if he rests up and I don't know, maybe figures out how to regenerate an arm or something like that,
Yeah, that's what I'm
shit,
wondering.
level 7, that's more powerful than most of the other adventurers out there.
Yeah.
You'd have to have like a party of like level 5s and 6s to compete with that.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see. So that's why I think he's saying he's going to go train, and then Bell was training with Eyes to get stronger as well. So, but yeah, this whole dynamic, the fact that once Bell met all the other Xenos is what they call them. Once
Yeah.
Bell met all the Xenos, and then he even got told, which I think was very perceptive of the lizard dude. He even got told by him. He said, "Look, you come across a monster that comes and attacks you, do not hold back." Because he knew like the rest of us knew. He knew that once Bell had met all these other monsters that, had a personality, had, all this, is that he would have that idea or that thought process of, can I actually kill them still? And even in the first encounter that he had after that, put that into question too. Because he still hesitated when he went to go kill him. So, oh man, the dynamic and the way this is all like starting to kind of pan out or whatnot, I'm just like, all right, this is what when after the first season had come across, this is the way I had hoped we would start developing the story.
Mhm.
So
I am. I have no idea what's coming next. Like, who would have thought intelligent monsters would have been in this season?
No, I mean I didn't. I mean, like based upon the trailer, like the very tinges of that was something I was like, okay, he's gonna protect her, and this is what's gonna happen. Da 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 da. But the fact that it went from that to all of a sudden multiple monsters, all with their own intelligence, and all of them, you know, capable of human thought and emotion and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they still haven't really necessarily explained where all of that comes from.
Somebody mentioned it when his Chris like Stone got taken off, and she was backed against the corner. They're like, if you don't see a stone on her brow, get rid of her. I'm like, somebody knows about those stones, and I'm wondering like, who knows and what's the
But
whole.
not all the monsters have that though. That's just her situation, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, so then I'm like, at least for her, like that stone was a big thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, it was a huge thing.
So I'm wondering like why did that one person know, and why was that a rule to like if she had the stone capture her, if you didn't have the stone get rid of her? And I'm like, I don't know. I just felt like it was weird for that person to say that. But I'm like, it feels like either that was
talking about characters too. That the one dude who was part of that the descendant of the one dude who went mad with the labyrinth or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god! Like he was only in there for like what 4 or 5 episodes?
Yeah.
Something like that. I wanted him dead. Like I was like, oh, kill him, freaking kill him, just freaking kill him. I don't even care, kill him. I was like that. That to me is good storytelling and character design. When you have someone who, within a short period of time, like he was always meant to be a bad guy. Like that was his role. That was what he was going to be. But there are levels upon that. Like there are levels upon that where someone's a bad guy, but you're like, he's a bad guy. Yeah, do whatever. It's fine. Then there are levels where you're like with that. Like I make that same reference with like Borderlands 2 with Jack.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was a guy towards the end of the game. You're like, oh, freaking kill him, please, kill him. I want him dead. Can you kill him?
Yeah.
And like, to me, like those episodes, those 4 or 5 episodes where he was in, towards the end of that, I'm like, oh, please, Bell, somebody, I don't even care. Just kill him. Just murder him.
Yeah. Like how you're saying, like just kind of regular villains where they're kind of one note, they're not really fleshed out, and they're not really causing too much damage to where you're like, stop him from doing what he's doing right now, but he's not going to cause that much damage. Like just stop him and throw him in jail, and we'll be done with him. This villain is a level up from like modern villains, where it's not that he's a bad guy and that's all he is, but then it's like the modern villains today are like, he's a bad guy, he's doing bad things, but this is the reason why. Here's a little bit of backstory. Like this guy is like the evolved version of that, where it's like he appears like he's just a poacher and he's just killing. Like he already captured them, and it's like usually when they capture monsters like that, they're gonna sell them, but he keeps killing it, and it doesn't really make sense. But it's like, okay, for some reason he's just capturing and killing all the things.
You realize just how sadistic he is.
Yeah.
Like there is some sadism in him for sure. The fact that he was toying when he first came across those monsters, like the spider and all that, like he was toying with them.
Yes.
And the fact that when he was facing Bell, he was laughing and toying with him the entire time. And I'm like, come on. Like that's when it's not just I'm bad. That's like you've lost it. Yeah. You have lost it, and you need to be stopped. And unfortunately, with someone who is that far gone, probably the more permanent of methods is the one that's going to have to happen.
Yeah, because he's also very smart. Like
Yeah, he is.
it's one of those villains that like not only does he have like all the different stages of villainy, he touches like the most important things from every single character in every different aspect. It's
Mm-hmm.
like everybody knows Weena is like one of the characters that like the story just like completely arcs around.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, oh, I got her back here. So just in case I need her, I know how to release her and cause a whole bunch more damage.
Yep.
And then it's like the only way you can kind of feel bad for him is that he's locked into this like blood binding contract. And it's like
But it's
it's
like if see if it had been a situation where like nothing had happened and he was asking people for help in order to stop him from doing said things,
yeah,
like if he was like, I have this blood binding contract and I cannot help but do these things. Help me not do these things. Try and see if you can cure me of this. Try and see if you can give me something else that I can maybe scratch this itch that I pretty much have because of this blood binding contract. But it's instead of doing that, he went full force the other direction.
yeah. He like found the worst of all worlds.
Mm-hmm.
He's
And
like,
he was like, so in that sense, yes, it is tragic because he is kind of pushed into that. Do I feel sorry for him because of that, though? Because of decisions he himself made? No. So,
yeah. But it's like, and he's not really even like the big bad. He was just like a very, very,
he
very
was,
tough obstacle.
yeah, but he was a very well fleshed out, tough obstacle.
Yeah,
Like, they gave you reasons why you did not like him.
yeah,
So, and then, going back to character development, I like the fact that we're seeing progression from where we started from continue. And I'll say this as far as wealth. In the very beginning, when we first met him, he refused to make magical weapons.
Ah, okay, yeah, yeah,
He refused. Because to him, he thought it was beneath him because magical weapons, they're going to break. They don't sustain themselves. And to have a weapon for a fighter or a warrior who is in the midst of everything, one, it's not on their own merits that they're winning, and two, if the weapon breaks, what else do they have?
yeah.
So he never wanted to. In the
But
second
pride and
season,
pride and reliability.
yeah, in the second season, he kind of, you started to see him lax on that a little bit because on the God War, the Familia War that they had, he gave the elf two magical swords, and she used them pretty well. Um, but then you never really saw anything after that. But in this one, now here again, he made multiple magical weapons and gave it to the samurai girl with him for them to be able to, and he knew the power of what he had because he had that moment of hesitation where he didn't want to use his trump card for fear that it was going to be too much. But it just took a little bit of a push from somebody he knew to be like, you just need to do it. And he did.
And it's cool that like the other characters like know each other so well that
Mm-hmm.
they're like, you can push yourself sometimes. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm very, I don't know. It's this whole season I really don't have anything to complain about as far as the season goes. Like there's really it was everything I wanted in the second season and didn't get. We have a progression of the story. We have character development. Character development with Wilf, character development with Eyes, character development with Belle. I mean, even character development with the supporter girl, because
Yeah.
in the beginning she was very much against helping these monsters because she was of the mind, like everyone else was, of they're monsters, they need to be killed. But in the end, she, whether it be because of her love for Belle or whatever, I think she still agreed that it was the actual right thing to do. She's one of those characters that she'll never fully admit that, she did it for the right reasons, but she'll admit that she's the tsundere character essentially.
Yeah.
So, um, and even Hestia had her little bit of growth too,
Oh
because
yeah.
when Ween went to go back, like she had her moment of I wouldn't necessarily say epiphany, but the fact that she recognizes the fact that Bell pushes himself for everybody, and that Bell considers Ween family. Because at first she was like, "Oh, he saves girls," but then she stopped herself. She goes, "No, he considers you family, and because he considers you family, is the reason why he's going to the extent that he is going." And she could have tried to force Ween to go and keep running, but she also recognized the fact that Ween was that Ween had matured on her own as well, and was more of the idea of, instead of having to be rescued, she wanted to help out too, and that she didn't feel right leaving Bell in the situation that he was in. you know and as we said before, Bell had his own progression too.
Oh yeah.
And one of my favorite parts, and I will say this because we'll get to that, it's one of my favorite parts. One of my favorite parts is the fact of that fight between Belle and Eyes. She makes the comment of, they kill people, and he goes, so do we.
Yeah.
She's like, what do you think of that sword in your hand? What about this dagger? And I'm like, Belle, bravo. God damn, good point. Good point. She's so focused on this monster fact and the fact that they're monsters and they're evil, but it's like humans do the same thing.
Yeah.
You know? What happened with the elf girl in season 1 when her familia? There was another familia that killed her familia. And then she went and wiped out that other familia. Like, people or other magical beings of sorts, whether an elf or whatever, kill other people or magical beings. It's not just monsters. And I think everyone's just so fixated on that. And Belle had that epiphany of like, you're going to argue the fact to me that it's because they're monsters and they kill people? We do the same thing. We have the capacity of our own to do the exact same thing. So how does that make us any different? Especially when they have the capacity to not only talk and but they can feel too. So where's the difference? And I'm like, God damn, Belle, you just Belle, shit. We have grown in our capacity here. I appreciate that to the highest regards. Like, damn. So, like I said, to me, I think this season, and hopefully this is what continues on to the next season, is what we were wanting, is what we get, because this is, it's just amazing. And in regards to this to me is what, if you want to do a fantasy anime, this is what it's all about.
Yeah.
So
So there were three things that I just kind of wanted to throw out there that kind of stuck out in my mind. Some of them just to be silly, and then some of them were like points that we had talked about. Do you remember seeing a unicorn?
No, not to my knowledge. Was there? Where was there a
So,
unicorn in this season?
yeah, it was 100% a background character, except for one point. It's like almost every other scene, he's like just standing in the back with everybody.
Really?
And one scene, he interacted with like one of the main or side characters. It just made me laugh. And I'm like, oh, there's a unicorn. And I just couldn't not see him from that point. So um, there's this. I think they were underground or in a cave or something like that. And there was one point where a bunch of people showed up, and like, and just smashed the unicorn in the face. And I'm like, oh no. Boy, what is the unicorn gonna do? Like charge into everybody? Like I was like,
Oh, he was with that group.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Now I'm remembering. Okay.
Just smashed the unicorn in the face, and I'm like, oh my god. I'm like, wait a minute, has that unicorn even done anything to anybody? I just felt bad. And then from that point on, I just kept seeing him over and over and over, and I was like, damn, you got hit real hard. You didn't do nothing. So that was one. The other one was like, I guess, uh, the battle between Bell and the Minotaur, and he was kind of
Oh God, that battle
like,
was intense.
yeah, and he was just laid out, and the thing was like, I won, and walked off, and I'm like, all right. And then one thing that this show like executes very, like, I would say basically flawlessly, like that a lot of other series and a lot of other media don't really execute that well, because when they execute it in a certain way, I feel that they don't use that opportunity very well.
Mm-hmm.
And that is bringing Weenie back. A lot of times when you have a major character pass and they come back, is usually towards the end of the story, and that character doesn't really do much. Like they participate in everything that's happening afterwards, but they aren't like a
And
huge,
integral.
yeah, they aren't really integral to the story.
Mm.
I was very sad when they passed, and I was like, damn. And I was trying to think, now what? And then she gets resurrected, and I was like, no, you cannot make me feel like this. And then just be like, oh look, she's back. So I was mad for like however long, and then she was crucial to the end of the story. I'm like, all right, I will allow it.
Well, and I think that also might have been a thing of the anime not being able to go nearly as in depth as probably the manga did, I imagine, because they alluded to the fact that the necro or the wizard or whatever, I don't remember what they titled her. She's the undead mage or whatever. Anyways, once she did it, she alluded to the fact that she's never in the entire time she has done has known of that spell, has never been able to pull it off.
Yeah.
Like it was the very first time in probably a good long while, because it sounds like she's lived for a good long while, been able to do that spell. So I think there's more to it, and I think there probably would have been more of an explanation. It might have had something to do with Bell. It might have had something to do with Bell's presence and maybe his ties to Wine and the feelings he was feeling at that time that were able to allow that spell to work the way it did. So, there's definitely questions as far as that goes, but I mean, I did feel like, because yes, it was a very much of a moment of like, oh God, no, oh no, no, she can't die, no, what are you doing? And then just to have her be resurrected after that is like, okay, why did we go through that? It's like, wait,
Yeah.
you know, maybe have had her been like mortally wounded and then got healed or something, but not have her like
Yes.
actually die or something like that. But like I said, I feel like the manga might have added more to that and allowed you to kind of feel that it was that there had been an extreme effort placed upon it, and that it was only by the circumstances that it was in that allowed it to actually work the way it did. Because I feel like that explanation of what she said after she did the spell, saying this is the first time it's ever worked, alludes to the fact that there is something more behind it.
Yeah. I would feel like maybe like it would have tied in, and it's like I don't know how it would have affected the story before, but if maybe she tried to use it earlier on,
Mm-hmm.
like just like plant that little seed, and
Mm-hmm.
then when we needed it most, it grew and blossomed.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but but
But I
I'm
mean,
like
again, so
even uh,
it's not that I felt like it was. I mean, yeah, I did feel in a sort of sense that it was sort of a what do they call it? Plot armor.
mm,
They were like, oh, plot armor. Yeah, she can't die, so of course there has to be some fix all for this situation or whatever. But I did feel like it was something. It wasn't just like a gimme. It was. I felt like there was something that was more behind it, and that it had to be worked more than what we as um, the watcher were known about. So
yeah. But those are my three things. I was like, I have to write these three down because like these are on my mind.
oh
Um,
yeah, I agree totally.
um, so would you recommend this show?
Oh
Absolutely, hands down, 100%
hell
yes.
yeah. Hell yes.
Who is this show for? It is for everyone.
Oh yeah.
Season two kind of sticks to the whole like reputation that some anime has,
Yeah.
but season one and three are like
Just absolutely amazing.
yes,
Those were the seasons that we deserved. Those were the seasons that really shined and made this the actual thing it needed to be.
yes. Did it meet your expectations? Oh, far surpassed.
Amazingly so.
Yeah, I don't even know. Like from the trailer, it's like I thought that they were just finding someone else that they were adding to the crew. Like they'll teach her how to also fight monsters, and like maybe there'll be some kind of thing where like there's we only have to deal with the issues caused by the race of monsters that she is and how she's kind of turning on that race. Maybe because she's now with these adventurers and she's helping them kill all the other types of monsters. There's
Mhm.
no way I could think that like monsters could talk and all
Oh
this
yeah.
other stuff going on and this labyrinth and all the other kind of stuff. It's like,
See, to
yeah,
me, I thought she was just a special case. Like I thought this she was going to be it.
yeah,
There was not going to be like this whole sub race of monsters attached to all the other ones, of which they were sentient and intelligent and stuff like that. I thought we were just like, no, no, this is just the one monster he came across, who all of a sudden wasn't like he saw that she wasn't a threat, and then at the same time, all of a sudden that she was more than what she seemed to be,
mm,
and that maybe she was the key to unlocking potential elsewhere or something like that, but he had to protect her because of it. Like I saw more of her being protected the entire time than her being able to do anything. And the fact that she, by the end of the series, by the end of the season, grew to the point where she actually helped Belle and was actually a key element as to the reason why both of them managed to get out of the situation that they were in, to me was just startling. Which is why when that whole scene came about, I was shocked to see that it happened.
mm.
like, you know, and then when it started happening, I was like, oh, she got rid of her talons, and yeah, I could see the blood and it's painful, but I thought, oh, you know, before she does anything else, Belle's gonna stop her. But the fact that he was just so much in shock by what she was doing, and then all of a sudden it wasn't until after she ripped her wing off that all of a sudden he was like, no, you can't, you know, we have to, she can't do this. I'm like, you really God, you stopped her for anything else happens, because Jesus Christ, she's about to kill herself.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I just this whole series at this point, and maybe it's just because of after season 2 there was such a low expectation for it. Like it just like season 1, it's a freaking roller coaster. Season 1 when it got us up and we're like, yeah, this is gonna be great, and then season 2 we went down that hill, and we
Yeah.
kind of went towards the bottom. And then we're like coming towards season 3. We're like, oh god, what are they gonna do now? What is this gonna even gonna be about now? And then we started going, and we're like, oh, we're going up this hill now. Oh, okay. Yeah, absolutely. You know, so yeah, no, I feel like this is well deserved as being easily, you know, this series now, skipping season 2, but just having taken into account season 1 and season 3, this should be on top of most everyone's list of animes to watch. I mean, this goes up there with some of the classics, and I think it deserves it.
Okay.
So,
I've been trying to think of how to answer this question, and I can't. Who is your favorite character?
oh man, that is a tough one. Because, like I said, all of them had such growth as characters. Even Eyes had growth as character.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Belle was a great character. Ween was even a great character.
Yeah.
Um, like I said, I enjoyed Wells'
Oh,
character. Hmm?
I would say somebody who did something that made me very happy. Um, and it's like normally in that case it would be the quest lady that,
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
but I don't know. She didn't tug in my heartstrings this season. Like
Mhm.
somebody else took that spot.
Yeah.
Like when she went off at her coworkers, she was like, "If me leaving is gonna put us behind, there's something wrong with this organization."
Yeah, yeah,
I was like, God damn. So I
yeah.
need to give her a break.
Yeah. She needs some time off, people. You guys need to give her some time off, because holy shit, she's gonna lose her shit.
Yeah.
Um,
The one person that actually tugged at my heartstrings is that waitress that he met up with, and she was like, she knows what's going on in town, and he's like, oh, is she gonna ask me too? And she was like completely not talking about it,
yeah,
and he was like starting to break down a little bit, and she's like, calm down, just lay right here, everything will be fine. So how's the weather been going? It's like just completely keeping him at ease,
hmm.
and I'm
Well,
just picking her because she did I felt like she was calming me down too. I was like, okay, I'm gonna just relax for a bit. Thank you.
yeah, because man, this whole season was just a roller coaster of emotions throughout all of it. Um, God, I guess I'd have to go with Ween, honestly. Like her interactions with Belle, like not even talking about like towards the end, but like in the beginning, her interactions with Belle, like the naivete that she had about the world and about everything that she was a part of, and the fact that like that very scene when she wounded Belle in the very beginning, and I was just like, that look, because you could tell she had feelings for Belle from the get-go. You know, I don't necessarily put them as far as love goes, but you know that she really had feelings for Belle. and then to see the blood from something that she had done, just that terror on her face of thinking that she had hurt somebody that she cared about, and then to have Bell diffuse the situation as the way that he did, I was just like, oh man, that is just like, that is understanding, and that is it's beautiful. I mean, it was really that whole scene was, to me, was just beautiful, because what do you think about when you in your experience as a human in this world, in this life, if something hurts you, you have a knee-jerk reaction. If you stub your toe, you have a knee-jerk reaction of getting pissed off. Like the thing, you're the one who stubbed your toe. It's an inanimate object that was in front of you that you yourself hit, but you still get upset about it
Yeah.
because it hurt you.
Yeah.
And so if Belle were to have had that reaction to what she had done, it would have been understandable, because people get hurt and that's what you do. But he saw what was happening from her expressions, and he immediately went the other direction. Um, so, and then just by the fact of, like, she grew so much as a character, because she went from the naivete to overhearing the fact that she was causing problems for the Hestia family, and so she ran, and then she saw something that was going to hurt another person, having just been told that people don't like her because of what she is and what she can do. So now we're going straight back to where that whole situation with Belle was, because now it wasn't even a fact of she had done anything wrong; it was the fact that she could do something wrong that was the whole problem. And then she sees some girl in trouble, and actually goes to help and defends her, and still gets in trouble for it, you know. And then that whole scene where she was getting hunted down by the Lokia family, and again put in that situation where somebody was about to get hurt, some human was about to get hurt, and she intervened. And thank goodness the freaking Lokia family girl, the Amazon girl with the giant sword, actually saw and took note of that, because that was what caused her to double think and be like, maybe she's not so bad after all, you know. So, like, and then just to have that whole scene at the very end between Belle and Eyes and her, I mean, God, such character growth, such character development. Like, I just was so enamored by the fact that, like, she went from being this naive little girl who was in distress and couldn't help herself to standing up and helping to help somebody else, and even putting her own life at risk. And, like, to me, I'm like, wow, that's just amazing. But it wasn't something that I ever felt was forced. Like, you could see the progression as it was happening. So yeah, no, I guess my thing would have to go to Ween.
And then favorite part.
Oh, jeez, that one's just as tough. I mean, there are so many good action scenes. There are so many good, and the exact opposite as the previous one, and where they cut through the action scenes and didn't show you things. There was hardly any cutting from those action scenes. But even not even taking to the action scenes into account, like all those other scenes that I just mentioned, like those are all excellent scenes,
Yeah.
showing character development, showing story development, growth, and just, God, it was just, yeah. I don't know if I can pick one.
Um, I'm gonna pick a group, and then my favorite one would be the one that I felt had the most impact out of all of them. Is every time when either a monster, every time when a monster showed something to an adventurer that made them second guess. So like
Mm.
when Ween saved the girl, um, when um, Ween basically was just herself and kind of affected the supporter. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd say the last one was when Ween got Ice to kind of switch around because Ice is a huge threat, and
Oh yeah.
when she has her mind made up, you don't have much time to change her mind. You have to do something drastic.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say Ween making the choice to go back and help Belle, and in the course she changed I's mind.
Yeah, that was big. That was huge.
Because like without that whole group of scenes, Hope kind of seems lost. Because it's like all we got is Belle. Nobody believes him,
Yeah.
and through each of those little scenes, it's like you get one more ally at a time.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think that whole last 3 episodes, I think to me were, I mean, just absolutely outstanding because it showed, just as you were saying, we had our main family, we had the Hestia family, and they were doing what they could do in order to help the situation. But every time they turned a corner and every time there became a problem, there was always another member of a different familia that was there to help them.
Mm.
Whether, you know, when the Fox girl went to go help Ween and Belle and then came across that wolf dude from the Lokia family,
Yeah.
and she went out knowing full well that she is not capable of doing any sort of, like, she's a support character, she's not a fighter, and yet she was there standing against them. And then that one woman came out and, you know, took up the fight for her, and I'm like, all right, you know. And then that whole thing where Eyes was looking at Belle when he was trying to be the distraction, and all those people kept coming up to him, and he was like, "Why are you here? What are you doing? Why are you here? What are you doing?" And even I was like, he has a lot of ladies coming up to him, and I'm just like, you know what? You're not wrong about that. He does have a lot of ladies coming up to him, and you have to sit there and wonder why. What, you know? But it shows that, like I said before, the other gods and goddesses are actually trying to help. Like, they're putting aside the animosity that they know of for these monsters and saying, look, I trust you. I don't necessarily know everything that's going on, and I don't necessarily share your reasonings behind it because I don't have all the information. But because you're so adamant about this, and I know you wouldn't do this without a good reason, I trust you. And to me, that was an amazing feeling because each time one of them made it into the scene, it helped that much more. And it was not only a boost in the fact that you had an extra body and someone else to help defend, but it was a morale boost too. It was justification for the Hestia family in a lot of ways to know, hey, you're not alone in this, and you are in the right, and you can fight for that, as opposed to what they were doing before. So I'm like, hell yeah. I mean, that's amazing to me. I'm all about that. So, yeah, I thought that was. I thought in general, like, that whole situation was just absolutely outstanding. And then, of course, the fight with the Minotaur at the end was just, God, that was intense. And then especially to find out that he was the Minotaur that he and Bell had actually defeated previously.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow.
One small thing. It was probably like in my list of three should have been four. And it's like a small little kind of off to the side thing. Um, so something similar happened in Seven Deadly Sins, where a battle happened and a city got beat up a bit. The villagers are fixing the village, and in Seven Deadly Sins, Diana is helping them.
Mm-hmm.
In this show, Belle and the goddess are walking around, and everybody's getting mad at them. I kind of felt like they should have kind of helped rebuild. I'm like,
I don't. So in the situation that in Seven Deadly Sins that you're referring to, like the threat was over. Like what had caused the need for the destruction that had occurred was done, and it was no longer a threat. So yes, there was animosity towards Diana because she had been the main one to cause a lot of that damage because of her size. But she could put her focus and attention on that as opposed to worrying about the threat being a threat again.
uh,
And the situation with Dungeon, the way I see it, is that the reason behind what happened was still there. And because everyone knew it hadn't been, because what happened at the very end, no one hated Belle
yeah.
because what had they been told? The monsters had been killed. They realized the threat was done. Threat was over. So the animosity that Belle had towards him was gone.
Okay.
Because they figured, all right, you know what? We've dealt with it. It's fine. Um, it's done.
And I guess another thing would be the villagers. They can't really participate in the fight. It's a fight between the adventurers and the monsters.
Yeah.
And basically, all they can do is try to piece their house back together and continue their normal day because they can't actually help.
Correct.
Okay.
Because they don't have the abilities and the power that adventurers do. Because
Okay.
you have to be blessed by a god or goddess in order to be able to do that. Which is the reason why he couldn't really go into the dungeons until he actually had a goddess or a god who was going to patron him.
Okay. And I guess they were also on their way somewhere instead
Yeah,
of just
because
kind
I
of.
think I think they were trying to get to a potential hiding spot where the Xenos might have gone to, that they thought might have been the case.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. So, Dungeon Season 3. Spectacular show. Everybody
Absolutely.
should watch it.
Absolutely.
Uh, the next show we're going to talk about is Jujutsu Kaisen.
So I really want to know your thoughts on this.
I keep calling this show Junin Taisen. Man, I have an in-law, and he watches that. He's recently gotten into anime, and I was like, oh, well, the only shows I'm watching are Junin Taisen and Dungeon, and he's like, wait, Jujutsu? I'm like, huh? Jujutsu? And then like a day later when I'm watching it, I'm like, oh yeah, he was right. I'm like, what show am I calling it? And like 3 episodes in, I'm like, Junie Tyson. So now I got the names all straightened out. But so Bless you. um, I I don't know how I feel about this show
Okay.
because I felt a little bit disconnected from it, and that's probably because it's based in the occult, and it doesn't like fully pull me in.
Mm-hmm.
But then everything else, the action, the villain, all that kind of stuff, is done very, very well, and
Oh
I
yeah.
ended up liking the show. So I'm like, I liked it? Question mark? Or like, I really liked it? Like, I don't. It's a good show.
This is a good show. This is a phenomenal show. I feel like this is. I have a hard time trying to think of which one I like better this season between Dungeon and Jujutsu Kaisen, because both of them I think did a just absolutely phenomenal job. Um, the beginning was a little. Eh. I mean, it's like okay. I mean, I get we have to lay the groundwork for it. Like we have to know who our main character is, what their why their reasoning for being here is. But it's a rough spot. Like it's a rough spot for anyone to be in. I feel like because he really didn't have a whole lot of choice from what I feel like when he swallowed the first finger. Like I feel like there was just not a whole lot of choice in that matter. Um, but then to be told that basically your your fate now that you have done this is either A, we can kill you here and now, or B, you can collect all the fingers and then we can kill you. And it's like, man, what? Excuse me? Is there a C that follows this or something? Um, which I feel like there is going to be.
Yeah.
Like I feel like a C option will present itself at some point down the line.
You know,
Um,
I thought so, and then things didn't kind of work out like they were like it was. There's a kind of a small hitch in the plan where it's like he had control, and then he temporarily didn't have control. So I'm like, it's like yeah, eventually he'll like. Eventually, something will come across, and excuse me, have an opportunity to get out of it. But I'm like, he hit a serious bump, and I'm like, hopefully.
So here's the thing. I feel like Sukuna's um, motivation is very vague. Like it seems like the way he acts and the way he says things, I feel like you're like, okay, he's just a bad guy. Like we can't allow this entity, this being, to be in our world. It's gonna be bad if that happens. But then he says and does things that I tend to question. Like this is almost the same situation I feel like that was with first season of Overlord. Like he's a bad guy per se, but the way he necessarily does things, I'm like, it's kind of left a little bit vague, So like, say for instance, in the fourth episode when he, when right before Yuji dies, essentially quote unquote dies, um, like, so he's like, well, if you let me out now, I'm gonna take out your friends. So what does he do? He's like, well, I'm gonna have them leave the area, and then I'm gonna call them once they're clear, which he did, almost dying. He did, and then Sukuna's like, well, how can I get back at him? Oh, I know. I'm gonna go ahead and I'll bring the fight to him. So he like, come here. We're gonna go find the brats and we'll take care of them. And then it's like, okay, here's the thing, you have to know it's very rare, from what I've seen, for curses to get along with each other.
Yeah.
Like they really don't have a like even when they're paired up with each other, like some of the other ones later on are, you really get that feeling like they don't care if the other one dies or gets hurt for any sort of reason. Like there's very little in the way of like camaraderie between them. And then the fact is like you are the king of curses. It's been said before. Like you're the pinnacle of curses when it comes to this sort of thing. You had to have known he was going to be afraid of you. So his reaction, the curse's reaction that he was fighting at that time to attack him, especially when his back was turned, is not unreasonable.
Yeah.
And the whole limelight. I feel like I'm like, kind of makes sense that he would do that. But then immediately to have that, he's like, he stopped it. It was nothing. What he did to him is like, whatever. He's like, he made this whole big cursed energy ball and then fired it at him. And he's just like, stop, whatever. So it really had no effect.
Yeah.
But then to immediately go, oh, you don't want to go for a walk? All right, well, then I'm just going to kill you right now. It's like, it's almost like he's looking for a reason to do those things. And he knows the way, just because of how things are going to go, that this is what's going to happen. You know what I mean? So I'm like, I don't know if necessarily Sukuna, yes, he is a bad guy, but I don't know if he's necessarily like as bad as we think he is. He's almost like the anti-hero kind of thing.
Like an anti-villain.
He's like an anti-villain, essentially. Because I'll give you another example. The whole situation at the very end with Mahito, in which Mahito, so in the very beginning of the battle, he touches him and tries to do something to his soul, but because Sukuna and Yuji Solar entwined, he ended up touching Sukuna's soul, in which Sukuna was like, I'll let you off the hook, but only this once. And that's just because we laughed at him. I'll let you off the hook. But don't let it happen again. And I'm like, you're kind of foreshadowing here. You know what I mean? It's like, you had to have known the possibility, even if by mistake, of it happening again was going to happen again. Like, that had to have occurred to you. So you basically gave yourself an excuse to handle the matter without seeming like you're being the one to handle the matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. His character kind of fascinates me in that regards. Because I'm kind of on the fence about whether or not he's really as bad as he say he is, or if it's just a whole facade.
It's one of them. Didn't we talk about a show or a situation where the problem was caused because of the potential that something bad could happen? Or maybe I heard it on something else where it's like,
you'd have to remind me of that because I don't recall that.
Yeah, I think it was like, I think it was a reference that you had brought up where there was so much power put into one spot that everybody feared it and thought of it as dangerous. So they had to get rid of it. Where maybe Sukuna, he's such a powerful curse. He's not actually a bad guy, and he's just, he does whatever he wants. And
because he knows he's powerful enough and no one's going to be able to stop him.
Yeah, and whatever he wants to do ends up just being kind of messing with people who mess with him first. So
So I
like you're
mean,
saying, I don't think he's like a bad guy. I just think that bad is just drawn to him because of how powerful he is.
it's I really think Sukuna's character is very interesting in that regards.
Yeah.
Um, Gojo, his teacher, I think he's a phenomenal character. Um,
The glasses
that
guy?
is, yeah, no,
Yeah.
the blindfold.
Oh.
He is a phenomenal character.
He's gorgeous.
Yeah, no, he is. He is seriously just gorgeous. Um, but it's like, so from the very get-go when his character was first introduced, like, he's everything I wanted in like an anime teacher. He's silly, he's comedic, he's powerful to an absurd degree, but because he's so powerful, in the same sense as Sukuna, he knows he can get away with things.
Yeah.
He knows he can do things or say things that most other people would never dream of doing, but he can back it up.
Yeah, he's kind of like Kakashi 2.0,
Yeah.
like from Naruto. Yeah.
No, I can see that.
And
Because, I
like,
mean,
eventually we're gonna find out what his weakness is.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, he is just absolutely hilarious with his antics. You know? The whole fight with him and the volcano head dude was just absolutely both amazing and funny as hell. Just funny as hell because you could tell he gave zero fucks about anything that was happening. He did not give a damn about what was going on. But he was just having the time of his life. Same thing with when Sukuna first came to the battle. Because, like, Sukuna came out and he started fighting them. And he was telling his student about the treat that he had gotten. And even though he's fighting Sukuna, he's still telling him about the treat that he had gotten while he was touring, while his student was taking care of business. And then looks at Sukuna as he's just casually laying on his back and goes, "Sorry, but I'm gonna have a little fun with this. I'm gonna show off from my student." And I'm like, "All right, cool." You know. So it's just, yeah, he is an amazing character. I didn't necessarily care for him at first, but Nanase, the businessman,
Oh,
I like him now too. I think he's a pretty good character.
right. Not glasses guy.
I think that's Glasses guy.
Okay.
One that had the weird spectacles. That yeah. I like him as a character now too. Like at first I was like, he seemed kind of stuffy, and I was just like, I don't know if I'll care much for him. But
I was worried
uh-huh.
because there was a character that was similar to him in My Hero Academia.
Oh yeah.
And that didn't work out too well.
Yeah,
So
right.
when it hit overtime, I'm like, oh my god, please don't flame out. Please don't flame out. Show that you're super powerful and then be gone. Please don't.
I love that whole thought process though.
Yeah.
Like when it hit overtime, and all of a sudden he's like, all right, well, we're going into overtime, and then actually he was better than he was.
Yeah.
And I'm like, damn, all right, cool. Overtime it is. We're going into overtime then. It's just, yeah. And then his classmates. I'm hoping we find out we have more to do with the girl, because I feel like we really don't have a whole lot going on with her.
Oh yeah.
But Manase, oh, I am really looking forward to seeing what happens with him. Because Sukuna is interested in him.
Yes. This is like Naruto and Sasuke.
Yeah. Well, so here's the difference, though. I've seen people make that correlation before, too, of saying that Yusuke is like Naruto because he has an entity inside of him.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like it's in the same capacity. Like, the nine-tailed fox eventually he managed to get kind of as a befriend, essentially. And he was able to use their abilities and use the power, essentially. Right?
Yeah.
I
I,
don't feel like this is going to be the same situation with Sukuna.
yeah, I would say it would be the same if the QB, the Nine Tails, and Orochimaru were mixed together as one entity.
Yeah. 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 I can see that.
Because he's stuck in one and he's trying to get into the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's just like this is where this is differentiates because Yuji he's having to learn on his own merits. He's having to take things on his own in his own merits. And I still think that Sukuna does play at least some minor role in this as well. Because that whole thing that happened at the very last fight and everything,
Mm-hmm.
where Yuji was getting all those puncture wounds put through him, essentially.
Yeah.
You're like, in the back of your mind, I'm sure when you're watching, you're like, he's getting all these wounds, but he's not bleeding.
Yeah.
You know, like there was a little bit of blood when it came, like the spikes came out of him, but he never would bleed from him. They're just holes.
Yeah.
And even he's saying that when Nanase came up to him, he's like, "How are you?" And he's like, "I'm fine. I just have a bunch of holes in him." He's like, "That's not fine. How is that fine? That's not fine." And I'm like, I bet you Sukuna is keeping him alive.
Yeah, especially with the whole heart thing.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, it's like he doesn't necessarily have a reason. Well, I guess he kind of has a reason to because he has a favor that he can call in at some point down the line, but he hasn't done it yet. And I think that favor is going to come into play during this next arc when when he gets reintroduced to his friends, because there is something with Manase that he wants to have happen.
And like people are wise, like somebody's wise to it too. They're like, oh yeah, by the way, did he mention some kind of like pact? And he's like, oh, I don't know. Like,
Yeah. Well,
I'm
they
like,
knew. Well, because they're like, okay, there's no way that he could come back the way he did without something having happened. And I'm pretty sure Gojo realizes that too.
yeah,
Like Gojo realizes it, but there's no way for him to be able to subvert that. And just it's one of those things where it's just like you gotta let it happen.
yeah,
You gotta let it happen, and you gotta deal with it at the time. But as long as you know about it ahead of time, you can kind of prepare yourself for it.
Yep.
So he's gonna keep that suspicion. I feel like Gojo's gonna keep that suspicion that there is something wrong and that there's a pact that had been made. He doesn't know what it was or what it entails. He just knows that it was made. So he just has to look out for it. I feel is what the situation we're going down is. God, no, I mean, just like again, like I want them to do more with the curses themselves, but not to say that they're not doing a fine job with what they're explaining with the curses, because I feel like they are. Like they're giving an explanation because essentially we're in the same boat as Yuji. We don't know anything about this stuff. So as he's being explained these things, we're being explained these things, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
But it's almost like I want to know more about them. Just because there's so many, like, the more we know about it, the more we still don't know about it. And I feel like that's going to be something that's going to be pertinent later on.
Do you think that they're gonna loop back around to his two club mates from his school?
I don't know.
Because one of them's in a coma, and I'm wondering if like.
Well, but see, he said that, and before he left, he said that there was going to be somebody coming from Jujutsu Tech that would heal him, and he would be up and about.
Okay.
So.
I was wondering if there was like some kind of lingering trap still back there.
No, I don't feel like there is. I feel like that's just that side has been taken care of at this point. But God, like there's so many different variations and there's so many different ways these curses come about. And it really intrigues me too, because thinking about what Mahito said with the fact of curses a lot of times come about because of the fear of a possibility of something, but there are also curses that are more primal than what the jujutsu sorcerers even can think about. Ones that come about from things like the fact that that volcano head, I'm sure he is a curse that came about because of the fear of volcanoes. You know what I mean? So it's like there is deep primal fear involved with this, and I feel like we've only just barely scratched the surface of this. And I feel like there's going to be more involved with that. And then the fact of like that, even going into the backstory of Nanase, who was like when he was with that bakery chick, and he looked at her at that one point and said, "You're looking rather fatigued and tired." And she's like, "Yeah, I've had this pain in my shoulder, and it won't go away." And I'm like, "Man, that is like," and then he gets rid of it, and you're like, "Man, she feels better." And I'm like, that's kind of almost like a relatable thing. That's kind of bringing curses to a level that even your common person watching this can look at and go, "Man, I've had that before. I've had like a pain in my shoulder, and it just like wouldn't go away for a long period of time. I mean, eventually it did, but thinking in your mind, you're like, what if it could have been a curse that it could have just been riding on my shoulder this entire time, and it wasn't until someone took care of it or it just went away on its own, something like that." I'm like, that's pretty clever. I like that. You're bringing something that's very mystical, very abstract, and bringing it into the real world.
Yeah.
So, from a storylines perspective, I enjoy the show. From a character perspective, I enjoy the show. Um, the animation is just gorgeous.
Yeah.
So many of it. I mean, the way he does, it almost reminds me of Demon Slayer when he gets that cursed energy around his hands,
Mm-hmm.
and you go from having
Oh yeah.
that very smooth, for the characters look and the background look, to having that energy flowing where it's very rough edged and like almost paint drawn kind of deal instead of
Mm-hmm.
the rest of it. I'm
Yeah.
like, it draws your attention. It gets your focus there, and it really builds up the suspense, I feel.
Yeah.
So,
Um, two things that my little side thing I want to mention. So the domain expansions,
those are great.
the volcano one was really really cool with like the lava bubbling up in the background. Like that lava reminded me of the lava in Aladdin,
Mm-hmm.
and it just this powerful, very hot force that if it comes after you, there's nothing you can do about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like just that immense, powerful feeling. I felt that with that one. And then when the other guy learned how to do it, and all of those hands just started coming out,
Yeah.
I was like, oh!
But it made sense. Like, that's the
Yeah,
other thing too, is that everyone's domain expansion that we've seen so far makes sense in the capacity of who is doing it.
yeah,
I mean, even Gojo's with the interstellar, like,
yeah.
that to me, which is funny too, because I watched a reactor on that, and when that scene came up, especially when he had like when you focus on the volcano head's face or whatever,
Yeah.
and you saw those lights and streams coming past him, he was like, "Oh, five gum!" Ah! They have that sense thing with the five gum, and I'm like, "All right, dude, yeah, no, I see that, I do." He's like, when the five gum finally hits." Uh, yeah, no, but it still made sense in the capacity of see I don't even know. I'm afraid to see whose domain expansion could potentially overpower his,
Yeah,
because
like
his domain expansion, like, okay, don't get me wrong, volcano heads look beautiful, but it was literally just like if you were in an active volcano.
yeah,
It's like, okay, you're just in a volcano. And even Mojito's one with the all the hands and everything, that was still creepy and everything. But literally, it was just a matter of he could idle transfiguration you anytime, anywhere.
Yeah.
Like as long as you were in that bubble, you were gonna get affected by it. But Gojo's, like he even said, it was literally a space where you knew everything and you knew nothing. Like the amount of information flooding your brain kept you from you're motionless. You don't know what to do. Like
Yeah.
everything you receive the information, but it's always partial information, and your brain just can't process it. And I'm like, that's just, oh my god, that just seems too much.
Yeah, even just the way it looked, it was
Oh
just
yeah,
like void,
yeah.
universe, everything. I was just like, and then there's that weird like distorted splat was like, and I'm like, uh, what is this now?
Yeah. What is even going on now? What is this? What is life right now? What is this even doing? Um. So yeah, that scares the crap out of me. Thinking like, who's whose domain expansion? Because you know it's going to happen at some point.
Oh yeah,
And it's like, whose domain expansion is going to overcome that? Because I'm like, that is some freaky ass shit. So, and I also did enjoy Sukuna's one too, but Sukuna seemed very more, and I like every single one of them. You can see where it comes from.
yeah,
Like you understand, like the volcano head is an active volcano. Mahito's one's all the hands because he has to touch people in order to use his ability. So of course, hands all over the place. Um, in Gojo's, it's like he has his ability, which you can't touch him because of the infinite space in between you. And I get that. So that's why his whole domain expansion is infinite space. But even Sukuna's, because he's a curse and he's ancient, he's old, he's magical in that sense. Of course, his domain expansion is going to deal with ancient Japan, which is why those, what do they call them? The gateways, the you know what I'm saying about
yeah.
would come up because that's part of what he is. I still like to see where the whole like slashing thing takes place is because it almost seems like what is that like a katana slash or was that like a claw slash because it like he slashed that one entity and it divided into like five separate pieces or whatever.
Yeah, and he was like, I was gonna do three, but
He's like, well, you're just not. Well, no, because he's like, I did three, but I guess you're not as strong as I thought you were because
no.
it did more than that. And I was like, okay, it's like, all right, well, shit, all right, cool. Um, so yeah, no, I'm like, yeah, this to me, yeah, this is like, I guess I almost put it up there with Demon Slayer as far as the storyline and the quality of the animation goes. And I'm almost surprised that it doesn't have nearly as much swell as Demon Slayer does. But I guess I could see where that comes from is because the characters themselves aren't as endearing, I think, as it is in Demon Slayer.
Yeah.
They're not bad, don't get me wrong. I have
Oh,
seen worse character development and worse characters themselves. Freaking Bahamut, where I didn't like the freaking main character at all. And I'm like, I will always think that. But um, I definitely see where that probably is the case as far as that goes. It just a little disappointing because I feel like this is definitely one of those where I feel more people should be watching.
yeah, for it like even I would say Demon Slayer and this one are both like the setting is a setting that I'm not really like. A lot of the anime that take place in both of these settings are like shows that I just never get to, and for them to both be like, this is good. It's yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
they've done well with the setting. So
For sure.
I would say everybody take a take a look at it. All right. Would you recommend this show?
Yeah. If you're not watching this show, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
You need to
Yeah.
be watching the show.
Definitely fans of the occult and curses and stuff like that. And then people who are also curious about it because like I mentioned before, it's like a high caliber one in this setting because
I know
I'm
we've said it before, but this is done by Mappa,
oh
and
yeah.
I mean, we all know if anyone has followed this channel for any sort of time. I mean, these are the same guys who do, Attack on Titan amongst other ones, and if you're ever on the fence about the quality of it, that if you know that anime, you know the quality of this anime because they don't hold back.
Yeah. I say who is this show for? Um anybody I would say
I
anybody
want to say
interested in like occult style, like curses and demons and
I want to say, well, okay, maybe not quite everyone. I want to say everyone. I want to say everyone should watch this one. Um,
if you were
but
to sample one in this genre, this would definitely be one I would suggest.
oh yeah, no, for sure, 100%. Um, fantasy buffs, action people, people who are into the cult, absolutely, this is a must watch for any of those people. Those who are more looking for like slice of life, maybe not quite so much.
Hmm.
Um, comedic things in it though. I mean, it definitely does have its comedic moments, which I appreciate because the non-comedic moments are so heavy
Yeah.
that they need to have comedic moments inside of it to balance it out.
Yeah.
Is what I would say. Like it has a good balance because of that.
Hmm.
Because like the situation with that one kid being bullied, the situation where his mom ends up getting killed, like those are heavy, heavy material. That's heavy. Like I felt for that kid when I realized that what had been happening to him and the bullying he had been put up with, like and just to put my stance on that, bullying is just wrong. I don't care. I don't care where you are. I don't care who you are. I don't care what your reasoning for it is. Bullying is never appropriate. Is never right. And the way that kid had been treated, you felt for him, which is why the fact that it ended up turning out the way it did had such an impact.
One kind of thing that it like helped I don't know, it kept me on like on the ride is like the teacher.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of like just a a teacher that kind of follows the rules of a teacher as far as like he does what is expected of him,
Mm-hmm.
but as far as the students go, they don't respect him
No,
as
no,
like
and I think
an elder.
I think he realized that, which is the reason why he knew what was happening, but turned a blind eye to it.
Yeah,
He
especially
knew what was
because
going
in
on.
no yeah, like in situations like that where it is a kid who has like wealth or something like that, usually his parents are like fund the school and something like that, which is part of the reason why he can kind of get away with stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I don't know, it's like that that little story piece is like stuff that I used to see in J dramas when I used to watch them,
Mm-hmm.
and for them to kind of slip that in there, that's like I don't know, something that kind of pulls me into like how they're developing the characters.
No, I mean like I as bad as it was, and it was bad. It was insanely bad. I do appreciate the fact that they went there. One, because I think that is a subject that doesn't get nearly talked about as much as it should be. And two, I think it really is not only relatable to a lot of people, but it really drives home the character itself.
Mhm.
So on all senses and purposes, I really appreciate what they did and how they handled it. I just, of course, wish things turned out a little bit differently. But I mean, that's just the way it is. There's not a whole lot we can do about that because that's just the way it is. But I mean, yeah, that was. I tip my hat and I say bravo to the people doing that because that was is as so conflicted. It was amazing, but it was so bad at the same time.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh god, that was horrible. But damn, was that really good as far as you're like,
Yeah.
ah.
and and it's like I don't know how to say it either because it's like there's bad execution of bad stuff, like that one show with the girl that has like the worst things in the world happening to her constantly,
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
and then there's like good execution of bad things where it's like you definitely feel for the characters and
Mm-hmm. Like even when he's you like even when he was pushed to that point and you realize what he was doing, you realize why he's doing it. There is a part of you that inside, this is why it's really good storytelling because there's a part of you inside that is like, this is wrong. He needs to be stopped. This is not something he should be doing. But there's still a part of you that's going, I don't fault him for it. I don't necessarily say that he's not in the right for doing so because God, he's been pushed so far.
yeah.
You know? So yeah, that is yeah.
I do kind of like how at the end, like when the main guy like finally caught up with him after like fighting him a bit and kind of like I guess disarming him and like they were actually able to talk for a minute. He was like, "Oh, your mom," and he's
Yeah.
like, "Ah."
Yeah.
So then it
Yeah.
kind of like, "Oh, I understand." But
And I mean that's what he needed. Like that's what he needed. And I so like his whole idea about bringing him into you know Jujutsu Tech. I'm like, oh god, that would have been perfect because yes, he does have an innate ability, and at this point he has no other relation, no other ties to anybody. Dad's dead, his mom's dead. I mean, it's just like there's nothing for him. So it would have been perfect. And then what happened to him, and that's why you're like you were built. That's great storytelling. You're built up so far. You're like, yeah, we're gonna bring him in. He's gonna be with the group. This great thing's gonna happen. We're gonna hunt down Mahito. We're gonna take care of him. And then things happen. You're like, oh no, no. You just stare at it in disbelief, and you're like, why? It is just so wrong. But it doesn't come out of left field because you realize just like Yuji said was like they're bad things. They're curses. So of course they're gonna do shit like this. But yeah, it's yeah.
um, so did it meet your expectations?
Yes.
Uh, yes, I'm still watching it.
110%. Where are you at on that?
um, I still feel that tug where it's like, why am I not hyped? I was like, God, that was cool. Oh my God. No, 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 no. Why am I not like really, really excited though? Oh, that dude's cool. so I'm like, I'm on a kite. They just keep dragging me along. I'm not like bored or anything. It's just
Mhm.
every now and then I'm like, I feel like I should be more excited. This is cool. I'm gonna keep watching, but I don't
Mhm.
know. So yeah, I don't know. I like it. I'm gonna keep watching it. Um,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
This is definitely going to be one of those series that without question, the The other one, the first one we talked about, was kind of a question mark for me, whether or not I continue watching or whether or not I would watch the next season coming out. This one, they come out with another season, I am there for it. 100%.
Who's your favorite character? I
Mm.
don't want to say because I feel like he's gonna die soon.
Gojo?
Yeah, glasses dude.
Oh, you're talking. No, you're talking about Nanase.
Yeah, I thought he was gonna die in that episode. So I'm like,
Mm.
he went from boring to cool to really cool, and then I'm like, then damn, that's usually the path of my favorite character.
I don't know. I'm a little torn between Gojo and Sukuna. I mean, Gojo's just cool. He is just the epitome of cool. He's that, like we said before, he's like Naruto's teacher. It
Yeah,
like
Kakashi.
Kakashi, like times 2.0 essentially. You're just like, oh, dude, you're just so freaking awesome. Good lord, you can do no wrong. I mean, he's standing up to the elders, and the elders are like, "You dare say this?" Like, I'm leaving now. Bye. He's just like, you can get angry all you want. And then he turns around and goes, "Oh, by the way, the meeting you're going to have, I told the other person to be here about 3 hours from now. So have fun waiting. Bye." And I'm like, God damn it. Talk about being petty because you can't do anything against them without just killing them. So you're just like, I'm just going to fuck with you. So bye bye. You know? Um, and then Sukuna, just for the reasons I said from before, it's just like, I feel like he is. There is such strong evidence to point him and being the bad guy, but at the same time, if you look hard enough at everything he's done and the reasonings behind everything he's done, I don't see him quite like I see he's giving himself like excuses so he doesn't lose face as being the king of all curses. But I mean that may be just because he's not super powerful right now because he doesn't have all his fingers or whatever. Maybe he's waiting for that moment and just biding his time or something. But I don't know. I feel like there's just more to his character than what we've seen so far.
do, do you know of any other villains that have like that massive level of pride?
I'm sure there are some out there. I just can't think of any off the
Like
top of my head.
Vegeta? But then he ends up being a good guy?
Yeah. No, Vegeta definitely has that same pride. But I don't know if necessarily think of what he does as pride. You know?
He's like, I'm the king of Saiyans. How dare Goku be stronger than me? Like
Well, I mean, I guess in that sense you could say the same thing because he's like, when Mahito touched his soul,
yeah.
he's like, know your place, fool.
Yeah,
It's
like
like, yeah, he does kind of put himself on that pedestal, but where, in Vegeta's sense, he put himself on that pedestal and there was somebody more powerful than him. He just took it as the fact of, I am the prince, I am the king, I should be the most powerful by default. Whereas Sukuna, I'm like, no, no. All these other curses that ever meet up with him are like, that's bad. He's powerful. I can't fuck with him. Even at the end, Mahito was saying that Jugo, the volcano dude, had more power, more innate power than Sakuna had at this time, but his presence was just so. And you could tell because the first time that he touched his soul, Sukuna's soul, he just afterwards, even though he didn't do anything to him, he stood there in just shock, just absolute shock, and it's just because of Sukuna's presence. And like that, if you can make somebody who is a curse, if you can make somebody who delights in tormenting of others, who is just absolute evil incarnate, because let's let's not just shred hairs or whatever. Magito's he's evil incarnate. He idol transfigured kids. I mean, that's just wrong on so many levels.
Just to figure out if he could do it.
Yeah. Like, he's experimenting on people just for the fun of it. Like, there is no redeeming qualities about this at all. So to me, I'm like, he is that bad, and yet when faced with Sukuna, who is not nearly as strong in the cursed energy is at this point in time, and still be just absolutely dumbfounded and just in shock, I'm like, that says something. That says something. So, and then of course, character-wise, you can't also there's that one character that they've all been with who seems like he keeps bowing out every time it's mentioned that that every time a plan starts going to action, because he's like, he can't be found by the Jujutsu sorcerers because it seems like he is one, and he's just colluding with the curses for some reason. So that's why I think there's more to this than meets the eye. Like, something else is going on here. I don't know if it's just because maybe he wants to see the world burn or something. Maybe he's one of those guys who's just like, no, let's let the curses free and go back to chaos and anarchy and whatever and whatnot. Or is it just because something else is happening that we're, as the watcher, just like Yuji is unaware of.
Okay.
So this is what kind of propels me now even forward, being like, I want to know what's going on. I want to know what the end game is, because I have no idea.
Yeah.
So
what is your favorite part?
oh my goodness.
I'm just gonna go ahead and say when he touched Sukuna's soul, and like he just teleported to another dimension.
Yeah.
He's like, "How dare you?" And I'm like, "Oh shit, what did you do, man?"
Yeah. Now, see, that's in the background. Now you fucked up. Now you fucked up. Now you have fucked up. Yeah. I almost want to say the fight between Sukuna and his friend, the dude, is the guy friend, his fellow student.
Mm-hmm.
Only because like he got royally thrashed, and it was amazing to see. Like, the very beginning fight sequence when they're out in the open, and Sukuna pulls out Yuji's heart, and then they start fighting. Like, he's just standing there with his hands in his pocket, just avoiding all of his attacks. But they do this like 360 pan around with the camera, so you're just watching every move that he does and every dodge that he makes. And I'm just like, God damn. When you that moment when you just gotta sit back and realize you're outclassed, you've got no options as far as that goes. But he, at the end, he draws upon something. Like, he's about to do something. And even his ability from calling those familiars, like, Sukuna comments on it as being not normal. The way he's doing it is not normal.
Yeah.
And then right before Yuji finally takes back control of his body, like, he's about to pull something out. And then stops.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing happens when the one Jujutsu sorcerer from the other school comes and visits. He gets thrashed for a while, and then just when he's about to pull that his trump card out, I feel like the other his other fellow students come out and take care of business. But I'm like, so close. I'm like, oh, come on. He was about to do something freaking awesome. I have a feeling. Let me see what power he has. God damn it. I also love his fellow students as well. The dude who can only talk in
Oh yeah,
the what is it?
damn it.
Yeah, but it's because he is a his words matter.
Yeah,
So he can't say words like normal people would because it'll cause things to happen.
yeah,
And I'm like, that's cool. That's freaking dope.
yeah. It's like Kagome saying sit to Inuyasha.
Yeah,
Everybody will just hit the floor.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I'm like, I want to see him kind of go off, you know? I'm like, damn, he's what can you do in that sense? I mean, you know, and of course the fact that he has a panda friend too. And everyone I watched in reactions for that is just like, is someone gonna explain the panda?
Oh my god! I
Is
was screaming.
somebody gonna explain the talking, walking panda?
They purposely let it like skipped it, omitted it in the introductions.
Yeah.
I was like, no, explain yourself.
Why is there a talking panda?
I'm like, and we have a panda. Moving on. I'm like, no, you can't do that. I won't allow that. um,
Uh.
yeah. So, um, speaking of the other students, there's an upcoming tournament arc,
Mm-hmm.
and I am very curious as to is a major incident going to break out during this tournament?
Oh, I guarantee you it will.
Because it's happened in Naruto, it's happened in My Hero Academia, it's happened in all the big shows that have huge tournament arcs like that.
I guarantee you it will.
And,
I guarantee you it will.
so yeah, I'm curious. One thing I'm also curious about is in order for them to have a tournament, they're gonna have a huge roster of characters, and I'm curious. One, how many like what are their styles gonna be like? The characters that we see right now are already like very different and very cool. Um, how many more are they gonna have, and how many are gonna stick around?
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, like something big's gonna happen.
Oh yeah, no, guarantee you. I
Yeah.
mean, I guarantee you this one that's been hiding behind the scenes with the curses is probably gonna make a move during this whole tournament thing. Because you can't not. I mean, there's gonna be so many jujutsu sorcerers in one area. It's like, how can you not try to do like a sneak attack or something?
Yeah.
And I think their plan still at this point is they're going to try and capture Gojo.
Okay. Yeah.
Because that's what they had decided on from the get-go is that he's too powerful to try and defeat. Their only option that they have available to them is to essentially capture and bind him to where he'll no longer be an issue. So
Oh,
oh yeah, I
who would have
am.
thought? Like
This has
I
been one of those that I'm just like,
every
this
time,
series came out of nowhere and I'm loving it.
yeah, I'm like every time a new occult series comes out, I'm like maybe this one, and I watch first episode, and I'm like okay, I'm watch something else, and over and over again that happens, and then this one I'm like oh here we go. I've been apparently waiting for this series.
Yep. This is the series I think we've all been waiting for. So
Yeah. Well, that is it for our 4 shows that we finished for this season. Oh wait, no, there's one more. That was number 3.
yes,
This
there
one,
is
the next,
one
rewind all that. The next show we're going to talk about is By the Grace of the Gods. Give me that, Jimmy.
yes. So this anime, okay. I feel like this anime gets a very bad rap because okay, this is pretty much your stereotypical isekai anime. There's nothing huge to say about it as far as story progression goes. This is a character who dies, gets reborn by the gods that you see there in the picture in the background, into our world. Apparently, according to them, our world, like their world, is full of magic, but it needs essentially from what I gather from how they described it, essentially needs a boost every now and then. So what they do is that our world has magic, but we don't use it.
This is the show that had that diagram and stuff going across
Mm-hmm.
to. Oh, okay. For some reason, I thought it was the other show.
No. So our world doesn't have magic. So what they need to do is they need to occasionally bring someone from our world into their world in order to give essentially a boost of magic into this. Um, they chose him because he had lived a fairly not the greatest life. And so he gets reborn in our world, and he is essentially reborn from a 30-plus-year-old guy to a essentially 8-year-old kid when he first gets into our world, I think.
Yeah, he was like a really big buff dude, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I
Yeah,
remember.
yeah. Eventually, he ends up getting found by a a duke, which is also one of the dude, the blonde haired dude with the blue jacket, is the duke, and he was out on a hunt and ended up getting sidetracked into the forest that the kid was living in. One of his guys gets hurt, and the kid heals. They find out that he's been living in the woods by himself and think that, oh, a kid living by himself like this is not right. He needs to have, people around him, this, that, and the other thing. So they essentially invite him to live with them for a time. Um, if you're coming into this expecting it to be a very typical isekai anime where the overpowered main character goes out and takes care of X quest that is going to help save the world or something like that, this is not that. This is not that. Um, this is firmly a fantasy slice of life, is what I would dub it as. It's a slice of life. It is essentially this guy slash kid who now in our world, now in this other world, is trying to live the best life that he can, and however he so chooses to. And since he's as powerful as he is, he doesn't feel like he doesn't have a reason to do anything else besides just doing whatever he wants. But it's not like he's evil in that regards. He's one of those who I'll do whatever I want, but what I want, because of how I lived my life previously, is just to be left alone. He would prefer that. Just because his interactions, and this is where, so mainly this is a very character-based fantasy, because you get snippets of his old life mixed in with his current life. Um, and there are numerous examples, one of which is at one point he gets the idea of creating a essentially laundromat using the slimes that he has. Because he has cleaner slimes that he can literally throw any sort of cloth or any fabric into, and they feed off of the grime on things. And then he ends up finding like a metal slime who he kind of uses as like a press. So people's shirts or stuff like that, he ends up pressing them because of that.
Okay.
So he uses them in inventive ways. But his business, when he starts it, he doesn't think it's going to be that big, and it ends up being way bigger than he thought it was going to be. So he ends up trying to hire some extra help. But he tries to manage it, and he realizes he's having issues, and he sort of relates some of these issues back to his previous life. in which some of his managers weren't always as attentive or would expect, because the people he hires a lot of times will be very much like, oh, we're messing up, or oh, we didn't do this, didn't do that, and he sees himself as in his previous life in a lot of it, because he's like, he did that when he was under someone else, and management would get upset with him because he didn't you know exceed their expectations, or do what they were supposed to do all the time. But because of that, he's like, you know what, don't worry about it. He's more understanding in that regards. And then a lot of ways, because of his life was so bad, like at one point he you know did this mission for the Adventurers Guild where he cleaned up uh, the public restrooms that were had like a miasma in it, and they ended up he ended up spending 3 whole days and nights doing this. And he walks home remembering his old life where he would come home early in the morning or late at night, and his mom would be there waiting for him because his mother had lived with him, and then she died, and the feeling that he would come home and no one was there for him kind of drew on his heart, and he felt something was missing. And then he gets home to this duke and his family, and all of them are there waiting for him, greeting him like it used to be, like when he was living with his mom. And he feels that on an emotional level, and it's something that he never really got to reconcile in his own mind and come to terms with. Now to actually have somebody who is a stranger, essentially is not as part of his family, but who treats him like family, was just like an emotional release for him. So again, this is not your stereotypical isekai. This is not, there's quests that need to be solved, there's a big monster that needs to be killed, there's a demon lord who's been resurrected, or da 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 da. This is purely fantasy, slice of life. Um, there's very little in the way of like, oh my god, is he gonna make it? There's like, the stakes aren't there. It's just not like oh, this is gonna turn out horrible. This is kind of just, to me, a very lighthearted fantasy, and I enjoy it for what it is. So if you come into it thinking that it's going to be more than what it is, you're going to be disappointed. And I saw so many comments on so many of these episodes on Funimation's website that would led me to believe that people came into it expecting an isekai about slimes and him being able to control things, and maybe there's going to be some big quest or whatever, and they're like, why am I watching a kid who's cleaning bathrooms? What the hell? It's like, that's not the point of it. That's not. It's because this is his job right now, but it's not the reasoning behind why this is so important. I appreciate what they did here, because this is, as far as what I can tell, as far as my own experience is, if you're trying to create a story behind something very fantastical, so being in another world, being surrounded by slimes, cat girls, dog girls, like animal people, gods, all of this fantastical stuff, you, as a writer, a producer, whatever you are in capacity to this, whatever you're doing, have to be able to bring it back, have to be able to take this fantastical setting and allow it, your reader slash watcher, to relate to it in some way, shape, or form. They have to have a flaw that you yourself understand. They have to have a personality quirk that you can relate to, or know somebody who does, or have it yourself. This is what that is. This is what they have done here. And even though, yeah, he is a grown adult in mind, he's a kid in body, people treat him like that, but also people treat him with a great deal more respect than he's accustomed to. And I feel like there are people out there who can relate to that. You're not treated with as much respect as what you should be. And then seeing his reaction in that endears you to him, because you would react in the same situation. You would feel that because you're like, wait, I'm being thanked for something that was my job essentially. Where is this coming from? People, that's foreign to some people because that's literally what happens. You don't get that in a lot of the ways. And sure, you in the same way. I know we've done job before, and you're like, we never get thanked for that because they expect it. It's your job, and the only thing you get is yelled at because you didn't do it fast enough. You know, and yeah, it's to go from something like Jujutsu Kaisen, and whatever, where it's like nonstop action and it's still great storytelling and characterization, to go to something like this, which is very relaxing, down to earth, and just good, clean old storytelling with no real consequences to it. I appreciate. I really do. So again, I think you have to meter your expectations. You have to understand that it's not what you necessarily think it's going to be. If you have an expectation for that, it's just you're going in for a fantasy slice of life. Calm, cool, relaxing. There is some action sequences in it, but it's very few and far between. It's not. I mean, their action sequences are ridiculous because at one point he's training his slimes how to fight, so he gives them sticks, and you see them, roll up to enemies and just try to beat them with sticks. You see the slime with just like his little arm coming out, just going and I'm like, come on, that's adorable. What are you trying to do? But I mean, so yeah, it's just yeah, it's definitely not on my top 10 list, but I definitely feel like if you're in the mood for a good slice of life and you're a fantasy person, this is for you.
So recommended to fantasy slice of life
Mm-hmm.
fans. Um, I guess for the people who don't fit in that genre, would you recommend the show?
I would probably find it hard to recommend that to them and have them enjoy it.
Hmm.
I still feel like there are people who would appreciate it for what it is, but it's definitely not going to be like it leaves a lasting impression with me only because I see the character development it has, and I really think that there are a lot of people who either write stories or stuff like that who need to take what they see here into advisement because it does exactly what it needs to in that regards. And what so many writers and so many other people I feel like lose or miss out on because they don't endear their characters to their readers or their watchers. And I think this does an amazing job of that. Top tier as far as that goes. But for other people, I think I would probably find it hard to try to get them to watch, let alone continue to watch it.
Hmm.
So that way you see that sort of development, you see that sort of characters, and how that relates to it.
Okay.
So
And that's usually tied to expectations.
yeah.
So as far as expectations go, um, it seems like once you got into it, you kind of molded your expectations to what you were seeing.
Mm-hmm.
But right off the bat, did it meet your expectations?
No, I would say that it didn't because again, looking at the synopsis, the synopsis for it, it doesn't really give you a whole lot of that. It doesn't really show what it's going to do. Um, and most of them reading into that would the only thing that a lot of people would get from it is that it's an isekai. So 9 times out of 10, that's not what you're going to see in an isekai, and that's not what's gonna transpire. So to me, it's not what I thought it was going to be at first, but it definitely made its way into that eventually. So
I would say for me, because I've only seen the first episode, just by looking at the picture, I'm like, all right, cool. It's a fantasy show. It looks like the guy's gonna end up with a harem. There's different type colored slime, so I'm like, what? Red's fire, blue's water. So I'm already thinking of like fantasy and fighting and stuff like that.
see,
And
not even
then
close to that.
yeah, and then when I got into the show, I was like, oh.
But again, I want to stress to people, whoever watches this, I want to stress to you guys, it's not bad by any stretch of the
Oh,
means. It is not a bad show. It just does not meet a lot of expectations I think that people had for it.
Who's your favorite character?
I think I'm just gonna have to go with, well, I would say the main character, but I think the cat girl that you see on there
Mhm.
is she's just adorable. Um, and it is really because like the very first time you meet her is the very first quest that he goes on is to clean her house essentially.
Mhm.
And it's only because she built her house next to the trash dump essentially of this city, and the wall caved in on one side, and her basement got flooded with trash. Yeah,
Fair.
even the main character goes, "Why would she build her house next to a?" You know what? Not even gonna think about it. He's like, "I'm just gonna do my job. We're gonna take care of things." The fact that she did, like, she comes out and she is like, he says who he is and what he's there to do, and she just immediately goes into tears. And then when he actually finished it, she's just like, "Oh my God, thank you so much. Thank you. No one ever took care of me. You're amazing." Uh, and then later on, when she helps him with what he was doing with the cleaning up of the public restrooms, she's just like, "I have to thank him so much." He's like, "Nobody's getting past me, not even a single rat." And next thing you know, a rat comes around the corner and she does like the typical cat thing of like, punching up and hissing, and then the rat goes scurrying off, and I'm like, she's adorable. I know she's not gonna. I don't have any expectations of any sort of fighting skills from her, but I would just be like, I would still have her in my party if I was in a fantasy realm, because I'd be like, "You are the heart of our group.
Yeah, just the center of morale.
You're just the center of morale. I just adore having you with us. You're awesome." Um, yeah. So it's yeah.
Okay. Favorite part?
Um, honestly, I would really have to say, because it nearly got me um, tearing up a little bit, was when he did that whole um, cleaning up of the restroom, getting rid of the miasma, and then he comes back to his home thinking that he's just gonna walk in like no one's gonna be there, and then when he sees everyone there waiting for him, and not only waiting for him but like asking him how he's doing, if he's okay, do you want to eat first, or do you want to just go to bed, you've been up for like the last 3 days, caring about him, and then seeing him break down and start crying, and then having the wife, which is the red-haired chick in the background, who came up behind him and just hugged him. Because you see situations like that, you're like, okay, somebody hug him, somebody let him know it's gonna be okay, and she does, and I'm like, oh, that's a beautiful scene. That's just a heartwarming, beautiful scene. Because he's not crying necessarily because he's sad. It's just because you got that build up from before when he was talking about his mom. Because he even said when his mom passed away, and he's sitting there in a chair next to her urn, her ashes, and he's got nothing. Like, he's so tired, he's so beat up, he's so just done that he can't even cry. He can't even express his emotions. And then to have that moment where he can literally just let it out. And I know there are so many people who can relate to that when like you're not something major happens in your life and you don't nothing can you're in shock. You're just in shock. But then, you know, a month down the line, a year down the line, 5 years down the line, something happens to you and it hits. And all of a sudden, all of that pent up emotion that you had that you may not even realize, because he didn't even realize that was like there inside of him, just came out. And it was just a beautiful scene from my thought process. I'm like, that is just so heartfelt, heartwarming, and really showcases the characters, and you feel for them, you know. So yeah, that would be my favorite scene.
Cool. So yeah, an atypical fantasy show. Um, way more deep than it looks, and deserves a chance. Everybody should check it out. Yeah, this is the last show that we'll be talking about today. Yeah, episode 70. Man,
So many.
yep. Yeah, the next show, I guess that we'll be back on the 31st.
31st. January 31st. I guess
Yep.
for our first impressions.
Yep. First impressions for the next season. There's a lot of shows that were mentioned last time.
Oh yeah. You know what? That is all on you for that there, buddy. That is all on you. I have my list, but it's not nearly as long as your list.
Yeah. But, yeah.
It's your work cut out for you.
Ending the year. This has been a crazy year.
Oh yeah. I'm sure for a lot of people.
Yeah. As always, this is DK and Shane from TacoYaki Anime. Thank y'all for watching. Thanks for hanging out in the chat. Thanks for supporting the channel in any way that you do. I hope everybody's next year is progressive in good direction. Like
as good, if not better, than this previous year has been for a lot of us.
yeah.
May set yourself some goals, and may all of your goals come true, and many wonderful and happy days be ahead of you.
Yeah. And yeah. We will see y'all next time.